What is going on, everybody, and welcome back once again. My name is Jordan, also known as JMonster. Thank you for joining me for another replay battle. Today I have a 4 versus 4 in a strategically unimportant box canyon over which much blood of elves, men, and dwarves will be spilled. We've got the forces of Khand and their elvish allies on one side against Rune, the dwarves, and Dale on the other, alongside some of their friends as well. This is going to be a really close battle. This is actually down to a couple percentage points at the end of it, and I think you guys are really going to enjoy it. So without any further ado, let's jump right into the army compositions, then we get into the replay battle itself. I hope you guys enjoy it. The first army we're looking at today is the Kingdom of Rune, being commanded by yours truly. I've brought one unit of Loki Nasrim. These are the heavy cataphracts for Rune, a very iconic unit for this faction. They're not as strong as they used to be in 0.86. They have lost their additional HP rather, but they have very competitive attack and defense values, making them very useful. But as cavalry tends to go, especially heavy cavalry in 0.9, they are very, very slow, so you need to be careful with how you use them, otherwise they will get caught out and destroyed by missile units or artillery even. I'm also bringing a unit of Bodyguard, which is essentially an upgraded version of the Loki Nasrim. It operates on the same kind of principle, except that, like Bodyguard units tend to have in 0.9, these guys are AP in close combat, and they've got multiple HP. Over here I've got another very powerful elite cavalry unit. These guys cost 1250, but they bring a ton of value. These are the Khamul's Dragon Knights, a unit which I believe is unique to Reforged. They've got multiple HP, anti-armor, anti-cavalry. These guys are so deadly, but you need to make sure that you take care of them, because as I mentioned earlier, they are very expensive, costing 1250 to bring. My front line consists of Loki Flagrim. These guys are so deadly in close combat against units that don't rely on their melee defense, for example. So units like Arnor and the Dwarves that rely primarily on their armor for their infantry to keep them alive, these guys are very, very good. But they're not quite as powerful against the Elves, who primarily have a very stacked melee defense value, which means that they can't get their AP bonus going. I've also brought 3 units of Runic Swiftblades. These guys are a new medium throwaway infantry unit for Rune. They're pretty decent enough at holding a line. They're kind of an equivalent to Gondor infantry, except that they aren't quite as powerful. But they do have good numbers, and they only cost about 500 to bring, so they make excellent fodder units. I'm also bringing a unit of Khamul's Chosen, the dismounted counterpart to the Khamul's Dragon Knights. These guys are AP, multiple HP, and they have amazing attack and defense values. But again, very expensive to bring. I think they cost the same as the Dragon Knights, 1250, but if you use them well, these guys are so strong, and they will get a lot of work done for your army. I'm also bringing a couple units of the Balkoth Tribesmen. These guys are AP Javelin Men, very inexpensive to bring. I think they only cost about 350. So it's definitely worth it to take them if you can get them going in a big way against basically anything. They will side them down like nobody's business. They're especially useful against the Elves, who, as I mentioned earlier, rely primarily on their melee defense, which is nullified by incoming missile fire. I'm also bringing 3 units of Lokanar Rim. These guys have a lot of range. They tend to fall apart in the face of missile fire, but they're great for sniping other archer units, and they've got really nice missile values as well. That basically does it for my army, except for the addition of this one ballista, which I have brought primarily for the sniping of other artillery pieces. Moving on now to my ally, this is the forces of the Dwarves, being commanded by Saint Toady the Pacifist. He is bringing some Ironfoot Guard. These guys are really reliable battle line infantry. They are very tough, multiple HP, and it is not easy to take these guys down with missile fire. They've got great armor values, although I recommend that you don't use them as your front line, at least not initially. They work very well in sort of a Principe's role in a Primerian Roman army. They are a great rock-solid unit to fall back on, but the Dwarves have other units for their first initial kind of frontline infantry engagements, like these Ironfoot Warriors, for example, who are AP. Dwarves are a little bit more expensive in this patch, but as Dwarven units go, the Ironfoot Warriors and their counterparts over here, the Khazad Warriors, are relatively inexpensive ways to fill out your infantry line. Toady's also bringing a large number, I believe 3 units of Ironfoot crossbows. These guys actually got a buff in 0.91 rather. They got +3 armor, so they're very good at standing up to counter missile fire. But you don't want to get these guys charged by cavalry. They can stand up a little bit better, but cavalry is definitely their main weakness. They can also drop stakes as well, making them a little bit more versatile for building field fortifications. Toady's also bringing some Ironfoot Halberds. These guys, halberd units and kind of polearm units in general, in 0.9 are very, very scary from the front. You want to take these guys down with missiles, but as they are dwarves, it's not an easy thing to do. They've also got a lot of melee defense, so from the front, these guys are extremely deadly. In the back, we've got a single unit of Catapult being brought by Saint Toady, and he's got 1 unit of Dwarven Noblemen to serve as his general's bodyguard. by and large, he's got a lot of mainline kind of line infantry, which I think he's chosen quite well because his opponents are actually the High Elves, so they're going to be able to stand up to that missile fire reasonably well. One of the big gaps, though, in his army I noticed is that he doesn't have a lot of cavalry, which could be a problem for him. But in any case, moving on now, we have the army of, or the Kingdom of Arnor being commanded by Sin of the Dark Cloud. He's bringing some Arnor Knights, some Knights of Illuminas. These guys are very, very deadly in 0.91. They are quite slow, however, so you need to make sure that you deploy them well, but they are definitely among the top-tier cavalry units in the game. He's also bringing some dismounted Arthedain Knights, a unit that is new in Reforged. These guys are two-handed, quite actually cheap infantry, only costing about 700 or so to bring. They've got amazing attack values. They definitely constitute an elite pick for the army of Arnor. They do not have HP, however, and since they lack a shield, they are quite vulnerable to missile fire, so make sure that you watch out for them. He's also bringing a unit of dismounted Dunedain Knights. These guys have 3 HP. They are pretty expensive to bring. You can get 2 of them before a prohibitive price increase, but they are definitely worth it. They will hold the line for an extremely long time. Sin's also bringing some Arthedain Men-at-Arms, some Dunedain Wardens, 2 HP Spearmen. They have a little bit less armor value, or armor and defense value, than the Arnorian Peacekeepers, but that extra HP definitely makes up for it and makes up for the increased cost. And behind them, he's got some more dismounted Arthedain Knights. He's also got another unit of Arnor Knights over here on his flank. And to top it all off, he's brought a unit of Dunedain Bodyguard. There is no mounted equivalent to these guys. These guys are AP at range, very, very deadly. They're also AP in melee, I believe, since they are a bodyguard unit. And to top the whole force off, he has brought a Trebuchet, which if you guys have seen some of my other videos since the 0.9 patch, Trebuchets have an extreme amount of range. Definitely useful for making your enemies come to you and dictating the terms of your engagements. Moving on now to the 4th and final army, this is the Kingdom of Dale, being commanded by D.I. Savage Paradox. He's brought a couple units of Earls, 1 unit of the Dalian Cav. A quick note on the Earls, however, they have got a big buff. Actually, Dale in general has got a huge facelift in 0.91. They are now a very deadly powerhouse faction as long as you build them properly. But yes, the Earls now have 2 HP and like 52 defense. They are not easy to take down at all. Savage Paradox also bringing a unit of Dalesmen, some pretty cheap throwaway shock infantry. They've got AP and a decent charge bonus, meaning that if you can get them into combat and get them working, they will do a little bit of damage before they melt away. He's also bringing a couple of units, I believe, of dismounted Earls, 1 here, 1 on the other side. 2 HP heavy infantry. Not very expensive, I think only costing about 750 to bring, making them a very valuable, very cost-efficient unit for what they bring to the table. He's also bringing some, it says unlocalized placement text, and that's just a bit of a bug that will be fixed later. This is a new unit for Dale. These are the Lake Town Swordsmen. They're decent enough medium infantry. Don't rely on them to hold a line for a very long time against some of the more powerful infantry units in the game. Luckily for Dale, they have managed to hold on to their Elder Avari units in general, since there was a lot of factions that were split up in 0.91 and in 0.9. But Savage Paradox has brought a couple units, I believe, of the Elder Avari Pikemen and 2 or 3 units of Elder Avari Archers. These guys are very, very deadly archers, extremely accurate. Elven archers in this game have like 90% accuracy, and these guys, I believe, have a share in that ranged expertise. So they are very good at sniping out other archer units, especially units less armored than them, like their opponent across the way there, the Sylvan Elves. In behind the Elder Avari Archers, we've got some Lake Town Pikemen. Pikes in this, as I mentioned earlier, are very, very strong, and the same applies to the Barding Herd. I believe he's got a couple units of Barding Herd and a couple units of Lake Town Pikes as well. Out in front, he's got 1 unit of Dale Dragon Slayers. These guys are a brand new unit created by Sin of the Dark Cloud for the 0.9 patch. These guys are AP missiles, one of the few AP missile units still in the game. They have a few drawbacks, but that's because they actually fire ballista bolts, so they can skewer multiple enemies with their arrows. Essentially, the idea is that they fire black arrows, but they can't fire over unit formation, so you will have to expose these guys to enemy fire in order to get them working. But they've got multiple HP and a lot of armor, so that's not all that big of a deal. But that basically does it for Dale and for this side, so let's go ahead and let's pop over to the other end and see what our opponents are bringing. Opposite the Kingdom of Dale, we have the forces of the Woodland Realm. In 0.9, these Sylvan Elves are actually split into 2 unique factions, and this is one of them. The Woodland Realms have inherited all of the Mirkwood units. This is essentially the army of Thranduil of the Woodland Realm. But in any case, Archangel here is bringing 2 units of Elder Pathfinders. These guys got a nice buff in 0.9. They're not useless anymore. They used to be very, very weak, but now they actually have a purpose. They're very good on the charge. They can just flatten other units, and they're not bad in melee, but they will fall apart in the face of some of the more elite cavalry units, like the Dale Earls across the field from them. But the Sylvan Elves, or the Woodland Realms rather, have a lot going on for them that isn't their cavalry. These are just a really nice thing to bring to make sure that you're not completely at the mercy of an opposing faction's heavy cavalry units. In any case, Archangel's also bringing a lot of these Here Edirith. This is another new unit in the 0.9 patch. This is a sword and board unit, essentially, of the Here Lang. You can see them in the back. The Here Lang and like the Here Bang and all of the very sexy Hobbit units. They are quite inexpensive. They make a wonderful tar pit unit. They don't have amazing numbers, but they've got decent enough numbers and really competitive attack and defense values. And behind them, we can see one of his skirmish units. These are the Elder Royal Council. As strong as they ever were, these guys are really, really powerful 2 HP archers. Although, when being faced down with focus fire from some elite archer companies, they can fall apart very, very quickly, so you want to make sure that you try and keep them as safe as possible. You can't see them in here, but there are 2 other units. One of them is like the Woodland Sentinels. I think they're hanging out over here. They are able to hide anywhere. They cost about 1,000 to bring, but they are really, really good snipers and really good ambush units. He's also bringing a unit of Hine Dower, who work along the same principle, except they've got, I think, a little bit less armor, less numbers, but they've got better missile damage. But they can also hide anywhere, which is why you can't see them right now. Out in the back, we've got the really, really strong elite picks. The Elder Palace Guard are still a powerhouse unit in 0.9. They've got some of the highest HP in the game, but they are very vulnerable to missile fire now. It is totally a viable strategy to focus these guys down with arrows. As I mentioned earlier, the Elves rely primarily on their melee defense, and these guys are the epitome of that. So make sure that you're careful with them and that you monitor your deployment, because they can get sniped very, very quickly, and they cost a lot to bring, so you don't want to have that happen. Archangel's also got a couple units here of the Here Lang. These guys are, I think, well known by people who play and are interested in Reforged at this point. They are essentially shock troops, a better version of the Sylvan Heavy Swordsmen. Moving on over here, it looks like... Oh yeah, this is the next faction. This is Khan, this being commanded by Von Mountain. One of the brand new factions in 0.9. He's bringing some Brotherhood of the Bow. A pretty familiar unit. Those of you that play DAC, these guys are really, really scary horse archers. They've also got multiple HP, so they can stand their ground for quite a while. Got some Brotherhood of the Lance. These guys have been in Reforged for a very long time. They're not as strong as they used to be, but they are still some of the best heavy cavalry in the game. Von Mountain is also bringing a unit of Nurad Windblades, brand new unit created by Sin of the Dark Cloud. These guys are so strong. This is actually, they don't look like much, but this is Khan's Uber cavalry pick. They've got 3 HP, anti-armor, anti-cavalry. These guys are so, so deadly. Moving up through the pass, we've got the rest of Von Mountain's army. He's bringing some Variag warriors. Pretty cost-efficient shock troops. Don't cost a lot to bring, and they can do a lot of damage against lightly and medium armored infantry. Out front here, we've got, I believe, 3 or 4 units of Nurad footmen. Some of the best footmen in the game available to the Khan faction. This is definitely their heavy infantry pick, their battle line infantry that they rely on. Out in front of them, we've got 3 units of Nerniag infantry, who are medium infantry but are also archers, making them very, very versatile. They've got pretty decent archer values as well. Out in front of them, we've got some Haruzi heavy infantry. These guys are kind of a throwaway unit. And in behind, we've got an elite pick for Khan to the Brotherhood of the Sword. Multiple HP and really competitive attack and defense values. Moving on now to his ally, the High Elves, being commanded by Arenian Gilgalad, otherwise known as Toshifer. He is a very good High Elf player. I think it's his main faction, so we're going to see a really good showing from him here today. He's bringing some Nori warriors. I think he's got 1 here, 1 on the other side. He's also bringing some Phallus Lords. These guys have fallen a very long way from the disgusting powerhouse unit that they used to be. They are essentially now an upgraded version of the Elder Rinway Spearmen, you can see down there, but they are very, very good for what it costs to bring them. And if you need a unit to hold the line for a very long time, the Phallus Lords are your go-to. In behind, Toshifer is bringing a couple units of Imladris cavalry. These guys are so fast. And honestly, the name of the game for cavalry in 0.9 is speed. And these guys are the epitome of that. They are a medium cavalry, despite the fact that it has them labeled as light. They are very fast, and very good at outmaneuvering heavy units like my Cataphracts, for example, or the Dale Earls, and getting into weak points in an enemy army. These are great units for launching hammer and anvil strikes because they're so fast. Just be careful you don't get them focused down by missiles, however, because they do not have multiple HP. Toshfor is also bringing a couple units of Eldarinway Swordsmen. These guys are monsters in melee. They've got pretty good armor values, but they've got massive melee defense value. So in a head-on fight, these guys will come out on top more times than not. He's also bringing a unit of Eldarinway Archers, one of the few AP picks available to the High Elves. Actually, he's got two of them. He's got one here, one down there. These guys are AP missiles. They've got a lot of range and a lot of ammunition. The High Elves really rely on these guys to take down key targets, like cavalry, for example. Out in front, we've got a brand new unit in 0.9. These are the Noldor Elder Nobles. These guys are really, really expensive to bring. 1850 to bring a single unit. You will not be able to afford a second. But they are AP everything. AP missiles, AP in melee, great armor and defense values, and they've got 3 HP as well. Very much an uber unit for the High Elves. Finally, now we've got a couple units of Mithlon Nobles. These guys are they actually got a nice buff in 0.91. They got a huge buff to their unit size. So they are now a viable frontline infantry unit rather than the support unit that they were at the initial release of 0.9. And behind them, we've got a couple units of Eldarinway Spearmen. Really good numbers on these guys. Multiple HP. These guys can hold the line for an extremely long time. I think that basically does it for the High Elves. So let's move on now to one of the other Elven factions. Yes, you're going to get to see all of them today. This is the forces of Lothlorien, otherwise known as the Galadrim, being commanded by Coldfront, who actually has his own YouTube channel. So if you guys are hungry for some more Total War content, I'm going to put a link for you guys down in the description. Head over to his channel, show him some love. He's a good guy and a great commentator. But in any case, Coldfront is bringing a unit of Galadrim Veteran Warriors, one of the few AP archers left in the game. These guys have great range, and they're also deadly in close quarters. They have multiple HP and really good armor and defense values as well. He's bringing a couple units here of the Sentinels of the Woodland Realm. Actually, 3 units of them. These guys are a very lightly armored, kind of medium-tier archer pick. They've got decent missile values, but they kind of fall apart in the face of sustained missile fire. And behind them, we have a Catapult, and further still behind them, we've got a unit of Sylvan Spearmen. There's a couple units of them. They're Sylvan Spearmen. They're exactly what they look like they are. A kind of lighter spear unit that is really just useful for holding the line for a little while. And behind them, we've got 3 units of Sylvan X-Men. These guys got a big buff to their unit size. They've got, I think, 43 defense and 22 AP damage, making them very deadly on the front lines. You want to make sure they don't get charged by cavalry, however, because they will fall apart very, very quickly. And behind them, we've got 3 units of Woodland Warriors. These guys are anti-armor, anti-cavalry, but very, very vulnerable to missile fire. But they've got amazing attack and defense values in melee, making them, honestly, some of the best shock troops, I think, that are to be found in the game. And behind them, we've got some more shock troops. These are the Sylvan Heavy Swordsmen. A little bit more of a budget pick. They don't have AP. They don't have anything truly remarkable about them, but they're not terribly expensive, and they can be used to kind of flesh out the numbers in your Elven armies. Finally, moving on to these Galadrim Mounted Companies. These guys are a brand new unit in 0.9. They are very, very fast. I think they've got pretty decent charge values, but they are essentially a light cavalry unit that operates along the same lines as the Imladris cavalry, meaning that they are very fast, very good for launching hit-and-run attacks, or for quickly scooting around enemy formations to launch hammer and anvil strikes. These guys are very, very versatile, and they can actually take on some heavy cavalry in close quarters as well, as long as that cavalry doesn't have multiple HP. So they're very versatile, a little bit expensive, but definitely worth the time to bring. And that basically does it for all of the armies, so let's go ahead and let's get into the replay. The first 2 armies to engage are going to be the forces of the Dale and the Woodland Realm. It looks like a fairly even amount of archers between the 2 of them. Actually, before we get into this, I want to make a quick note here. I actually missed these guys in the army compositions. These are the Royal Guard. They are very, very deadly multiple HP archers, mostly serving as a bodyguard, but they're not very well placed at the moment. You can see a lot of those shots impacting the hill, and that, I think, is going to have a very profound effect on the longevity of these Eldarinway archers. You can already see a lot of them beginning to fall very, very quickly, and that is because of the presence of these 2 units that I mentioned earlier, the Woodland Sentinels and the Hine Dower. I think because they were hidden initially, most of the archers' attention was focused on this unit on the Elder Royal Council. You can see a few of them have dropped, 1 or 2 of them, but these guys are much better able to stand up to incoming archer fire than their much more lightly armored counterparts who lack the HP that the Elder Royal Council have. So at the moment, you can see that all these archers are really kind of ganging up on these Elder Avari archers, and these archers here are now down to about half strength in a matter of moments just after the battle has opened between these two factions. So this is, I think, a big problem for Dale. They're going to have a hard time winning this skirmish fight if they can't bring all of their units to bear simultaneously against the elves. You can see some of the Dale Dragon Slayers here are firing. And you can see those catapult volleys flying off there, I think impacting the Woodland Sentinel. So they're not doing too bad, but honestly they've lost two of their very powerful, very expensive elite archers already about 30 seconds into the battle. So things not looking so great for Dale. Let's go ahead and let's take a look at what's going on in the center. You can see the dwarves have actually opened up on Khand and the High Elves. They are facing down the business end of two armies here instead of merely one. So it's going to be down to Arnor and Sin of the Dark Cloud to move in as quickly as possible and try and fill in that gap in the lines. You can see the dwarves are very, very thinly spread. Arnor is beginning to arrive through this mountain pass, so they're going to be able to join forces with their ally and take the fight to these two factions. But so far, the dwarves are definitely suffering from a numerical inferiority in this particular section of the battle. Oh man, some beautiful artillery shots coming in here. All of them missing, though. That is so unfortunate. Oh, another one. I think that's out of the Arnor Trebuchet. Yeah, they're trying to get some good shots there on the High Elven center, which was immobile and really asking for it. But unfortunately, the artillery missed all of their shots, and they weren't able to capitalize on that very blocky formation. Oh, I say that now. I say that now, and then half this unit of Mithlon Nobles just got eradicated alongside a very large number of those Elder Runeway Spearmen. That was a devastatingly beautiful shot. A quick note over here. Oh, this is so sad. My archer companies are being eaten up by the Galadrim. Bit of a funny story. I actually went AFK to talk to one of my roommates, and yeah, this is what happened to me. So a very catastrophic misstep here, which is costing me the lives of many of my Loknar Rim, which is going to put me at a distinct disadvantage. I brought these guys to deal with some of the High Elven archers and some of the Sylvanome archers as well, because they're a cheaper long-range alternative to those archers that are very good at taking them out. But I'm not going to have the opportunity to use them. You can see these Galadrim mounted companies moving in and destroying my Loknar Rim while I am blissfully ignorant off doing my own thing. And it's very, very unfortunate for my Loknar Rim. I'm not going to get a whole lot of use out of them in this battle. Those Galadrim now circling around for another hit against my my third and healthy company here. I wonder if they're going to get it. Oh, they are! That's so devastating. That's like half the unit now gone. Yeah, a very, very brutal charge. Although I finally come back and I see what's happening. Very, very unimpressed with myself, moving in my Camel's Chosen and my Lok Scion Rim to bully those Galadrim mounted companies out of my back lines. Elsewhere, though, it's just devastating. Look at the damage that these guys have caused to my archers. One full unit gone. This one essentially in tatters. And I've got maybe half strength unit of this Loknar Rim that I managed to salvage from that. So that is a very, very big deal for me. Yeah, those Galadrim mounted companies now bucking out of there, looking like they've done enough damage, and the Elven player is going to try and keep them for another day. But oh man, are they getting on my stakes? Oh, that's very, very unfortunate. Some of them got impaled there. So the Galadrim are going to circle back around. They're going to get a little bit too close to those stakes and lose a lot of their horsemen. But they are coming back for round 2. And I can see what's happening, so I've actually begun to move down my cataphracts and my other mounted companies to deal with this menace in my backlines, because if I'm not careful, they will chew through these guys, through my remaining archers, outmaneuver my infantrymen, and then come in to the back of my lines, and possibly even threaten my ballista, which is not a good thing. I can maybe live with the loss of my archers, but I do not want to lose this ballista, especially since I know I'm going to have to fight the elves down there who have a catapult. So you can see those Galadrim mounted companies getting a little bit overzealous, I think, trying to charge into the rear of my Loknar Rim, who managed to escape them and entangle their enemies on a unit of Scion Rim. I'm moving in with infantry and cataphracts to quickly surround these Galadrim and take them out of the fight and eliminate that menace from my rear. Let's go ahead and let's fast forward just a little bit here. Those two units of Scion Rim and Bodyguard moving in for a beautiful surround of those Galadrim mounted companies. We're going to take them down very, very quickly. The rest of them have come back, circled around to kill my poor 5 archers who are sitting back here, shooting them, acting as a distraction. So I'm going to take this opportunity and move in with my Camel's Dragon Knights, and let's watch this beautiful impact. 23 Galadrim, now down to a mere 10 in a matter of moments. That is the power of the Camel's Dragon Knights. That's going to be basically all she wrote for this Galadrim Mountain Company. I think some of them are going to get entangled on the stakes. Yeah, one or two of them is going to fall there. But ultimately, this was a disaster for my army. You can see that we've now brought all the remains of our three forces into the fray. The dwarves are moving in on the front lines and have actually already engaged the High Elves. All the way here down along the line, you can see a lot of fierce fighting. And the dwarves are actually pushing through. Most of these units don't really have what it takes to stand up to dwarven infantry for a long time in close combat. Over here in the flank, the dwarves are a little bit thinner, so the High Elves are managing to squeak by a slight victory. The rest of the Elven force is kind of just sitting on their hands. They don't want to move in to help the High Elves, not with these two armies waiting in reserve. So actually they're going to begin to open up on my front lines with their Sentinels of the Woodland Realm. You can see them doing a number on my Runic Swiftblades. I put them into shield wall formation to help them stand up to the arrow fire a little bit more. Honestly, I just want to use up their ammunition. These guys are not very important to me, and if I can use up some of the important Elven ammunition by keeping that unit in a shield wall formation, then that is a good win for me. Elsewhere, the Elven catapult is doing a number on our artillery pieces. You can see one of the trebuchets from Sin of the Dark Cloud has now fallen. There's some very accurate counterfire from that artillery piece. And honestly, this is a clever thing to do. He's using the non-flaming shots. We don't actually realize right away where that fire is coming from. So it's going to allow his catapult just a little bit more uptime. Elsewhere, though, this two catapult pieces here from St. Toady, now down to a mere 5 men in that unit. They've actually been skirmished down quite heavily by the Elven archers, now opening up fire on the Elven back lines. Elsewhere, the Kingdom of Arnor and their cavalry just doing a ton of work in the back. You can see they got a nice hammer and anvil charge there against some of the forces from Khand, now freeing up those Ironfoot halberds to continue their advance towards the Nomads' lines. Elsewhere, oh man, these Arnor Knights and the Arnor cavalry in general just being an absolute terror in the back. Charging into the front of the Phallus Lords. I think Sin very quickly realizes the mistake he made there and is going to pull out as quickly as possible with his Arnor Knights. Big hammer and anvil strike now going into the rear of the High Elven lines. The Khandish, a little bit of lag there. The Khandish forces not able to get in here and support their ally because they are pinned, fighting the remaining cavalry from Sin of the Dark Cloud. A really nice move there. Oh man, those poor Mithlond nobles just got flattened, pinned against those halberds. They're being brutalized by some really, really nice teamwork here on the part of Arnor and the dwarves. More artillery shots coming in. Oh, is he going to get him? Oh, just barely missed those other Runic swordsmen. That would have been a devastating loss for the High Elves. You can see we've kind of split our attention here between these three armies. While my allies are dealing with these guys, I've decided that I'm going to take the main bulk of my force and move them in against the elves. I know he's got some hidden units here because I've been paying attention to what my ballista's been doing, and I can see these two little burning piles here, which means that my artillery fire has hit something that I can't see. So I'm definitely going into this with both eyes open. I'm expecting to see a little bit of sneakiness here on the part of the Lothlorien elves. Lothlorien elves are going to respond to my advance in kind. You can see them getting their Sylvan Axemen ready, forming their main battle line, opening up on me with their archers who are doing a ton of damage to my Swiftblades of all things. I'm honestly okay with losses amongst my Swiftblades companies. That's why they are in the front. Now neutralized a second Lothlorien catapult. These Elven artillerymen are going to be essentially useless in a matter of moments. And here is the hidden front line. I actually missed these guys during the army compositions. These are the Sylvan Staffmasters. They have 63 defense and 0 attack, or almost no attack. They've got like 3 attack. So these guys are essentially here to hold the line with using their massive melee defense. Moving now with my Runic Swiftblades, engaging this front line of Sylvan Spearmen and these Sylvan Staffmasters. Honestly, I just want to get rid of these guys and not have to sacrifice any of my more important units in order to do so. So these Runic Swiftblades are going to do, I think, okay against the Staffmasters. We're going to hold out for a little while. Oh, some artillery fire coming in, counterfire from myself and Sin of the Dark Cloud looking to blow some holes in these Elven lines. Over here you can see these Sylvan Axemen have moved in. I've actually got my companies a little bit too entangled on these Sylvan Staffmasters, so I'm definitely not playing my best. My positioning isn't as good as it could be. I need to move both of these units of Flagrim around here and to try and hit this Sylvan Axeman unit on 2 sides at the same time. Looks like we've got some Nurad Windblades here charging into the rear of my Swiftblades. That is a very, very deadly thing. There's only about 4 of these guys left, but there is enough and they are powerful enough that they can do a lot of damage. You can see them now moving in to harass my Balcog tribesmen, getting a brutal charge. They're taking down many of my javelins. The rest of my javelins are going to be obliged to flee. I'm opening fire with what remains of my archer companies, trying to take these guys down as quickly as possible. They don't have a ton of armor, and most of the they rely on their melee defense. So they are quite vulnerable to missiles, but they're so fast, and I just can't burn through their HP fast enough. Oh man, I don't know whose artillery shot that was. I think it's my own. Oh man, I'm doing so much damage to my own troops right now. It's very, very foolish. Moving on now, there's actually an infantry fight that's been going on between Dale and the Woodland Realms. Archangel and I believe this is DI Savage Paradox going at each other. You can tell that the skirmish battle did not go very well at all for Dale. I think they managed to do a lot of damage to what remains of the Elven archers. Yeah, there's not a whole lot of them left. This guy's down now to about half strength. But the infantry fight definitely going the way of the Sylvan Elves. Most of the Earls have been dealt with. They have managed to reduce the Elder Pathfinders to about nothing, which is exactly what they needed to do and what they were capable of doing with those two Earl companies, but they just don't have enough Earls left to turn this infantry fight around. Even if they got those guys around to the rear of the Woodland Realm lines and started launching hammer and anvil strikes, it's just not enough. It's too little too late. I think the Woodland Realms are going to come out on top in this, and our poor ally Dale, isolated and alone, having to face down the business end of a very powerful Woodland Realm army, is going to crumble very, very shortly. Moving on now to the main fight down here in this little box canyon. My army is not doing too badly against the Sylvan Elves. I am managing to slowly beat them back. My Swift Blades have started to fall apart, so I've committed my Loke Flag Rim here and elsewhere. Bring in now some of my cavalry. It looks like a lot of my Flag Rim end up getting themselves shut down, or shot down. So I'm going to respond with a nice cavalry charge here that is going to flatten that unit of Sylvan Elf Spearmen. Although, actually, no, it doesn't seem like we did any damage to them at all, which is a little bit disappointing. So I'm going to pull that bodyguard unit out there as quickly as possible and try and get them moving with some cycle charges. Elsewhere in the center, I've actually moved in my Kemble's Dragon Knights to assist my ally, charging into the rear of those High Elven Spearmen. You can see the High Elves have lost in this main fight here in the center. They're being slowly driven back, and the Dwarves definitely coming out fairly healthy. You've got some Axe Throwers in there as well, some Ironfoot Guard, and another unit, a very healthy unit of Ironfoot Guard. So it looks like St. Toady has been using them as his second line, which, as I mentioned earlier, is probably the wisest thing to do with them. Over here you can see some of the High Elven Cavalry trying to shut down my Dragon Knights alongside their Spearmen, but I'm not having none of that. Moving in with my Dragon Knights, trying to get in behind the lines and possibly move in and begin to harass the Comdish forces and their Nerdy Egg Infantry, who are being an absolute nightmare to my poor Dwarven ally right now. You can see them firing into the unprotected rear and flank of some of these Ironfoot Axe Throwers, actually managing to claim the lives of a few of them. At the same time, Sen of the Darkcloud moving in with his Dunedain Wardens, looking to tie up the front lines here for the Nomads. I've actually moved in with my Ines Rim as well, who are just flattening these Nerdy Egg Infantry. You can see them doing a lot of damage. Kond is going... Oh, there goes Dale's General. That is basically it for Dale. Let's go ahead and let's slow it down just a little bit here. One quick note before we jump over to where Archangel's army is. These Nurad footmen here moving in to reinforce the lines are going to do very well against the Dunedain Wardens and my Loke Ines Rim. So this is not a fight we're going to win without any support. But moving on now, let's go ahead and take a look at what Archangel has left. A fairly healthy army. His shock troops still very much intact. A couple of his units of Hiri Dirith down to about half strength. And he's got his Elder Palace Guard, who came out of that practically unscathed. He's got some Elder Royal Council and a few archer units, so all in all, this is definitely a force to be reckoned with at this point. What have we got over here? I guess basically Dale is completely out. They haven't managed to really save any of their units at all, so that's going to be it for our poor player, DI Savage Paradox. Moving on over here, it looks like we've got some company in our back lines here. Where are they? Ah, yes, here they are. The Nurad Windblade still alive and kicking, harassing my poor archer companies who really can't afford the losses at this point. Hacking them down left and right. There's really nothing we can do except just try and shoot these guys and wait for that company to fall apart. So then the Dark Cloud has moved in with some of his Dunedain Rangers to give me a little bit of support on my end. He's now targeting those Sylvan Axemen, which is a really good opportunity, I think. These guys, as elves do, mostly rely on their melee defense, so arrows are particularly effective against them. Yeah, but the Sylvan Elves have done pretty well in the infantry fight. They've still got a lot of reserves, so they're definitely winning this with their units, but I'm going to come in with my cavalry, which is something that they do not have, and get a nice charge here into the Sylvan Axemen. Much, much better than the one we saw previously, flattening a large number of those very important AP infantry units. Cold Front now moving in with some of his reserves. You can see these Woodland Warriors being mobilized, and he's still got more of them. So many more troops here yet to come. I think he's actually got some more of his shock troops in the back as well. So Cold Front buying his time, being very, very patient with his troop deployments, and I think it's definitely going to pay off for him in the end here. You can see that my troops have started to fall apart now in the face of these Elven Warriors. So things not looking so great for me. Over in the center, though, we have definitely won a serious victory over the High Elves, and I think we've basically knocked them out of the game at this point. My Camel's Dragon Knights still looking to be a bit of a pain in the butt in these back lines. I think I tried to charge some of these Sylvan Heavy, or these Eldarin Swordsmen. Didn't work out very well for me. You can see a few dead cataphracts here, and not any dead elves. Elsewhere, though, Khand is really having a hard time. Sin of the Dark Cloud has moved in some of his Arthedain men-at-arms to support his Dunedain Wardens, and these Nirniag infantry do not have a chance. These Nurad footmen pushing hard against the Dunedain Wardens, I think because these guys have managed to surround them largely, and because of the presence of these men over here who are actually engaged in that combat, that the Nurad footmen are not going to be able to come out of that as easily as I would have thought. You can see these Arthedain men-at-arms now moving in to try and cut off some of the reserve units from Von Mountain. He's moving in here with some of his Nurad footmen to try and support his main line. Sin of the Dark Cloud definitely a step ahead, though. Moving in, getting a nice downhill charge, picking his battles very nicely. These Arthedain men-at-arms are not going to win this fight very easily, but with that hill bonus, they are going to do a lot better than they may have otherwise done. Sin of the Dark Cloud moving in force alongside my cavalry. You can see some of my Lokay in this rim and my bodyguard moving in to fight these Eldarin swordsmen. Sin of the Dark Cloud has mobilized his dismounted Arthedain, who get a big charge in the flank here from Eldarin. That is very unfortunate. These guys are going to lose a lot of troops very, very quickly. But luckily I've managed to move in with some of my cavalry, trying to keep them moving and get them into position for a potential hammer and anvil strike. Elsewhere, though, the High Elves have brought everything that's left over here to the forces of Khand, looking to form a last stand here with their allies and hold out just long enough for some of their allies to come to their aid. The Galadriel Elves have definitely won a solid victory here over my army, and of course we've got the forces of Archangel who are now moving in to the battlefield. You can see them finally making it to this mountain pass, so we're going to have to contend with them pretty quickly. So we're going to need more or less a miracle at this point to deal with these forces of Archangel. I'm now mobilizing my very last reserves, my 2 units of Scion Rim, who are here to hold the line for as long as possible. What do we got here? Some of these staff masters have got into my Balkoth tribesmen. They may actually rout them. That would be a very big problem, I think. Yeah, there's some of the remnants of the Sylvan Axemen in here who are disrupting these guys, preventing them from tossing their javelin payloads into these Woodland Warriors, who would not like that very much. They don't have the armor to stand up to a sustained missile volley from these tribesmen. So yeah, this is definitely a good move on the part of Cold Front, keeping that unit alive for much longer. I formed up here with everything I got left. I've still got my Camels Chosen and 2 units of Scion Rim, so hopefully we can hold back the Elves for just long enough to allow the Dwarves and Arnor to swarm and defeat what remains of Khand and the High Elves. Let's take a look at this. Very intense fighting here all along the lines. See the High Elves, I think they got themselves hammer and anvil. Yes, a big charge in the rear from the Knights of Anuminas. Elsewhere, they dismount the Dunedain Knights alongside some of the Dwarven infantry, trying to hold back the combined forces here of the Elves and Khand. They're doing a pretty damn good job of it. Look at this. They're surrounding these guys, pushing them hard, and driving them essentially into an encirclement. Elsewhere, the Dwarves are supporting their ally with some Blacklock Engineers, who apparently I didn't see earlier. They are very powerful crossbows. They actually shoot ballista bolts as well. You can see them alongside the Axe Throwers and some of the crossbows, firing into the flank of these Brotherhood of the Sword and the Eldarin Swordsmen, who are engaged with a second unit of Dunedain Knights. There goes the High Elven General. This is looking really, really good for my allies and their forces right now. Even the Noldor Elder Nobles are not able to stand up to this. Oh man, these poor dismounted Dunedain Knights. They're actually kind of being driven back into an encirclement here. But the more that the Elves drive them back and push them and hem them in like this, the more that they expose themselves to fire from the rear. looks like Khan has moved in for an encirclement. He's actually managed to break through this center line here, and is trying to exploit that. I've moved in with some of my Camel's Dragon Knights to try and counter this movement and to take down as many of these Haruzi heavy infantry as possible. This is a really great opportunity. There's still some friendly units here that are holding back the Nurad Footmen, and some Dunedain over here as well that are holding the line. This is the perfect opportunity for me to move in with my Dragon Knights. This way here is wide open. Nice big charge here. Oh, boom! Taking down a lot of those Haruzi infantry. Not as many as I would have thought, but still, we're doing well. We're supporting our allies, which is exactly what we need right now. Also, you can see another flank charge here into the Brotherhood of the Sword with my bodyguard, trying to maximize our cavalry advantage in every way possible. The High Elves are actually now fleeing from that fight with the Dunedain Knights, leaving their allies here, the Variag Warriors, to hold the line in their absence. We're actually getting flank shot now by those Blacklock Engineers. Look at the damage they just did with those ballista bolts that they can fire. They have really short range, but if you can get them working, they will do things like that. That was just beautiful. Let's watch another shot. Yeah, so many of those guys falling apart very, very quickly. A big frontal charge here from the Elder Enemy Swordsmen, looking to silence these Ironfoot axe throwers. These guys are heavy infantry in their own right, though. After they throw their missiles, they are still very strong in close quarters. So these Elder Enemy Swordsmen are not going to have an easy time of it. In fact, they are losing that fight. Elsewhere, the Dunedain Knights now being driven back with the help of the Noldor Elder Nobles and a few Elder Enemy Swordsmen who are still present. Khan now moving in, looking to exploit this very weak portion of our line with some of his Haruzi heavy infantry. Although you can see these Blacklock Engineers alongside some Ironfoot crossbows opening fire, driving these guys back. Let's take a look now in the back. Looks like Archangel and his forces have finally managed to make it through. I think he's moving a little bit too slowly, though. He definitely wants to get in there as quickly as possible and help out his allies. Oh man, you can see what remains of the Lothlorien forces moving in to engage my front lines, probably looking to set me up for an attack from the rear by Archangel. I've got my missile companies, though, well positioned, and we're starting to rain death and destruction down upon these Woodland Warriors. I've even got my ballista going, looking to get some nice enfilading shots into that Woodland Warrior unit, who are now reforming, putting themselves into tight formation. The Camels Chosen are definitely going to come out on top in this kind of fight, though. Yeah, we took a little bit of casualties in that initial charge. These guys, as I said, are very powerful shock infantry, but they are ultimately going to lose that fight very, very quickly to the Camels Chosen. Elsewhere, though, my Scion Rim not doing so well against these guys. The Scion Rim don't have a lot of offensive capabilities, but they are capable of holding the line for a little while, which is exactly what I need them to do. You can see I'm moving in with my cavalry now that I've pulled off from the other engagement, looking to move in and hammer and anvil strike some of these Woodland Warriors. My bodyguard here looking to get a big charge off on these Sylvan Heavy Swordsmen. Let's see how they do. Boom! Not the best. Certainly could have been a lot better than that. So I'm going to pull them out very, very quickly and reform them and try and get another charge off. But a lot of my cataphracts actually went down in that fight very, very quickly. See a hammer and anvil charge here going in from the rear with my Camel's Dragon Knights, looking to flatten this unit of Woodland Warriors who are just going to be completely unprepared for it and get demolished. Look at that. That was a beautiful, beautiful charge. I'm going to pull them out very quickly and try and do the same thing on the other end. This is not good, though. Archangel finally arriving on the field. You can see his forces rushing in the battle. The elves are very swift. They can cover ground very, very fast, and they are definitely moving in very quickly here to save their ally. One final ballista shot there from my ballista into his Galadrim Warrior is going to claim the lives of, I think, a handful of these guys, which is in itself a victory, but that ballista is going to be shut down very, very quickly by the charge from some Sindar Blade Masters. Yeah, this is not looking good for me at all. My army, what remains of my army, is beginning to fall apart. Another charge here from my cataphracts into the front of these Sylvan Heavy Swordsmen. These guys are so exhausted at this point, though. It's hard to get going with enough momentum to really flatten these guys. Yeah, things not looking great for my army at this point. I'm just being overrun, attacked from all sides, and that's going to be the end of my force. So you can see my Lok Scion Rim being surrounded, and it's very soon to be routed. Elsewhere, you can see the last stand here of my Camel's Dragon Knights fighting alongside their brothers, the Camels Chosen. I've managed to hack down a fair amount of these Sylvan infantry. Nice hammer and anvil charge there really sent these these Sylvan heavy swordsmen here into a tailspin. They're not going to be able to win that fight unaided. But now the Galadrim veteran warriors charging into battle against my Camel's Chosen, not looking good for me. Actually, I've got a good opportunity here to move in with my Camel's Dragon Knights and get a hammer and anvil charge on those Galadrim veteran warriors, but unfortunately I'm not taking advantage of this, looking instead to try and get my Balcop tribesmen moving and maybe have them toss some javelin volleys into those Galadrim swordsmen and use my cavalry elsewhere. I'm not going to have the opportunity that I can see my Balcop tribesmen here are actually being targeted by the Brotherhood of the Bow. Oh, maybe those Brotherhood of the Bow are going to pull off the last moment and try and deal with my Camel's Dragon Knights, which is a good thing. Might potentially give me the opportunity I need to get my Balcop tribesmen working, but unfortunately Archangel sees what I am planning and tries to move in with his Sindar Blade Master. So we're going to catch these guys out in the open, and that's not going to go very well for them at all. I'm going to try and run these guys out of there, but like half the unit is going to fall apart very, very quickly, and really there's nothing left for my army at this point except for a few scattered units of cavalry. Elsewhere there, it looks like Khan has been utterly defeated by the combined might of the dwarves and Arnor, and with a little bit of help from my cavalry as well. I can see a lot of dead cataphracts in here. They're now circling around to try and deal with what remains of the Sylvan Elves, the Woodland Realm, and Lothlorien. Sorry, I'm not used to those two factions being a thing. Looks like Arnor actually has a couple units of Dunedain Troll Slayers here. These guys are very, very strong. If you've looked in some of my other videos, these guys are AP missiles, and they are very, very powerful in melee as well, with huge defense values. They don't have a lot of armor, though, so they're quite vulnerable to counter missile fire, but at this point, there's really not a lot of that left to go around. And also, they can hide anywhere, which is why I missed them in the first place. Let's see what Khan has left. Oh, there goes my general as well, getting cut down by a combined force of Sylvan Heavy Swordsmen and some Brotherhood of the Bow. But Khan is, I think, basically done at this point. Although, as I recall, he's got one sneaky unit left that we didn't see. It's another hide anywhere unit that we didn't see in the army compositions. But you'll see them later in the battle. They play a very important role. Sin somehow still has ammunition left at this point, so this Dunedain Bodyguard are opening fire on, I think, the Woodland Warriors, possibly. No, I see what they're going for. Yes, they're going for the Elder Palace Guard. As I mentioned earlier, sustained arrow fire can do a lot of damage to these guys. You can see that Archangel is definitely aware of this and is trying to move his troops out of range. Both those Dunedain Bodyguard have a lot of missile damage and a lot of range as well. Let's go ahead and let's fast forward just a little bit here. Oh man, he's trying to get them out of range, but more of those guys are falling. Now getting shot in the rear. Archangel wheels them back around to move in with a general charge from what remains of his army. Oh man, those poor Palace Guard just getting focused down. Yeah, look at that. More and more volleys coming in, claiming the lives of more and more of these Palace Guardsmen. That is really, really unfortunate. This is the kind of crux of what remains of his army. Definitely the unit with the most killing power that remains to him. But look at this. There's so many of the Arnor and Dwarven forces left. They really came out strong from the engagement with Khand and the High Elves. Yeah, this is definitely not a fight I think that Archangel can win unaided. His ally is now moving in. Coldfront moving in with what remains of his troops, some Woodland Warriors, a couple units of Woodland Warriors, one very depleted, and a lone Sylvan Staffmaster. But these poor Sylvan Heavy Swordsmen are actually getting focused down now by that Dunedain Bodyguard unit, so it's not going to be a lot that these guys can do. I think that's basically... Ah, yes, here they are. I think that's Archangel's general, so Archangel's general's now fallen, but look at this. We had no idea that Khan still had these guys available to him. These are the Nurad Assassins. They've got a lot of damage, AP. They are not very well armored, and they don't have multiple HP. So it is possible to kill these guys very, very quickly from range. But at this point, we don't have any ammunition left. You saw this Dunedain Bodyguard focusing some very important units, which is a good call for them. They didn't know that they were going to have to deal with these Nurad Assassins in the rear. Yeah, these Assassins just carving through whatever we can throw in front of them. We're just trying to delay them at this point. Try and keep them from getting in to our forces. If we had any cavalry left at this stage in the game, that would be extremely helpful. But unfortunately, all of my cavalry has fallen to the Sylvan Elves, and or rather to the Woodland Realm and Lothlorien. So there's nothing left that we have that can really deal with those guys very effectively. Also, apparently, Khan had a unit of Brotherhood of the Axe lying around. There's so many hidden units in this that I wasn't able to get through all of them in the army compositions. I'll put little pictures up so you guys can see what they have. But yeah, I didn't know that these guys were still here. and this was a big shock for us as well. So we're managing to handily deal with these Brotherhood of the Axe and Dunedain Troll Slayers doing a lot of work against them. At the same time, though, these Nurad assassins moving in from the rear, tying up what remains of our archer companies. At the same time, big hammer and anvil strike coming in from the Brotherhood of the Bow. This is getting really desperate. We thought we had this in the bag, but now we're not so sure about that. You can see a few of these Nurad assassins have fallen, but it's just not enough. There's not enough rangers here to fight these guys. And at the same time, we have to deal with these Brotherhood of the Axe, which we're trying to swiftly do so we can turn around and take down these Nurad assassins. We've got a few missile units left. I think what we should be doing is using these Ironfoot crossbows to focus down those Nurad assassins. That would definitely help us out in the long run. But I think the biggest concern right now is this Brotherhood of the Bow running around, launching hammer and anvil strikes, and just cutting through our infantrymen. Elsewhere along the line, the Sylvan Elves are doing all right. The combined forces of the Sylvan Elves are doing all right. They're managing to win on this flank. The Sylvan Heavy Swordsmen have done a number on these excuse me, on these Ironfoot Axe Throwers, now breaking through, getting into the rear of these crossbows, managing to completely silence them. At this point, all Khan has left, I think, is the Brotherhood of the Axe, who have now fallen apart. The Nurad assassins and his general. His general is still standing proud, somehow finding the will to fight after the loss of most of his army, launching hammer and anvil strikes into the vulnerable portions of my allies. And there goes Arnor's general. Actually, those Nurad assassins are now carving through the Dunedain bodyguard. Nothing we seem to do is enough to destroy these guys. And down here in the valley, you can see most of the remaining forces from the Galadrim and the Woodland Realms have been taken down, but somehow these Galadrim veteran warriors were held in reserve. We didn't see these guys either. We had our hands kind of full, as you can see. So it just seems like our enemies are pulling his reserves out of nowhere. And yeah, this is really, really a bad thing for us. We've got some Troll Slayers in there. They'll do all right against the Galadrim veteran warriors, but honestly, at this point, we're not as confident as we were originally. Although we've won in the center, so now Tody will be able to move in with his Dwarven noblemen into the flank of these Galadrim veteran warriors, which may be enough to turn the tide back in our favor. Also, though, it's so even, it's hard to tell who's really got the upper hand in this battle. If we take a look at the percentages, it is 96 to 95, so we are practically dead even at this point. It's really going to remain to be seen who comes out of this on top. Let's go ahead and let's fast forward a little bit. This Ironfoot Guard losing to these Woodland Warriors and the Hiri Dirith, which is going to leave the High Elves and their the Sylvan Elves and the Galadrim Elves, the masters of this flank. Yeah, there's really nothing left we can do here. I think most of those Ironfoot crossbows have been now chewed out by those Sylvan Heavy Swordsmen. Sin of the Dark Cloud has committed what remains of his Dunedain bodyguard. There goes the Dwarven General, slain by the Galadrim veteran warriors. But we managed to deal with everything that remains, for the most part, of Khan. There's still a few Nurad assassins left here that are now attacking these Dunedain Troll Slayers in the rear. Dunedain Troll Slayers doing very well for themselves, just cutting down like a mixed force here of some of Archangel's archers and his Woodland Patrol as well. Oh man, and at this point though, we have definitely lost 98% to 100. Everything that remains of Sin of the Dark Cloud's army has been cut down. The dwarves are all but spent. There's maybe a handful of them still left here. The Ironfoot Axe Throwers doing their best, fighting to their last breath, but it's not going to be enough. Yeah, those Sylvan Heavy Swords moving in alongside the Galadrim veteran warriors. That is going to be all she wrote for our team. A very, very close battle. Could have potentially turned around if I had managed to keep my archers intact, especially if I had them in this late portion of the game. But it was a wonderful, wonderful match. Let's take a look at just the devastation here all throughout this canyon. Many, many dwarves, elves, and men died for this strategically insignificant plot of land. I hope you guys enjoyed. That makes their sacrifice very, very worth it. Let's go ahead and let's fast forward here. Just watch the remnants of our army get cut down or flee. Not a whole lot left. Look at this. All that's really left is Cold Front's, and actually mostly Cold Front's forces at this point. So a wonderful game to everybody who played. As you can see, I didn't do very well for myself. The poor Deo player really got shut down hard by Archangel's elves. Elsewhere, though, Sin of the Dark Cloud and Tody. Wow, Tody really came out of this on top with the most kills in the game. Cold Front got a ton of kills as well, hacking down most of my army. The High Elves really, I think, struggled, although with 805 kills, they held out quite well against the Dwarves and Arnor for quite some time. Von Mountain, despite the fact that Khand is not a powerhouse faction, he stood his ground very, very well. And Archangel got second place for kills, killing most of the Dale army and a significant portion of my remaining skirmishers as well. But that's it for me. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you in another replay battle. We're going to have a sub-commander battle from an event that we did recently coming up next. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you later. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye!